Hey everybody, it's Galmadex and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we have these Strixhaven Draft Challenge events starting up. These are the highest stakes draft events that you can get into at twice the entry fee of other player drafts, both premier drafts or traditional drafts. And of course, quick drafts are the cheapest entry fee, so this is way more expensive than those. These are 3,000 gems or 20,000 gold to enter. However, you do get to play a lot of Magic if you are winning these games, because these are going to be best of 3 matches. You play until you lose 2 rounds or win 6 rounds. So you could be playing like 7 rounds of Magic here if you go like 6-1. Which can take quite a while. So definitely a very big, expensive event, competitive event, big time investment on it as well if you are planning to get a lot of wins here. So definitely not for the newest of players. I definitely still recommend quick draft number 1 when you're just hopping into draft, learning it for the first time. And then once you get comfortable with it, my favorite draft format is premier drafts on Arena. But if you're competitive, you want to throw a bunch of entry fee into this to potentially get some massive prizes, this is certainly the draft format for you, because you do get some pretty big prizes if you have a decent win rate in this format. You do get player draft tokens as rewards for each win that you get. Well, not each win, but you get some as you rise in wins, and these are the equivalent of an entry fee into a premier draft or traditional draft. You can't use this to play the Strixhaven Draft Challenge again, though, because this does cost more than any other draft format. So, essentially, if you play a lot of these Strixhaven Draft Challenges and you win a lot of them, you're going to have a ton of just player draft tokens left over to just do more drafts. So if that is your goal, seems like a fine way to use the gold or gems if you have the extras at this point. But with that all out of the way, let's actually just get into the drafting here and see what we end up building. Alright, Q is up. Let's get into this thing. Has been a little while since I've drafted Strixhaven. Have been playing Ikoria a decent bit recently, just because it is the cheapest draft format on right now, being quick drafts, and I did burn myself out on Strixhaven a little bit, but I'm happy to jump back in when we've got an interesting event like the Strixhaven Draft Challenge here. Alright, and here we go. So, our opening pack here looks like we have a Vanishing Verse. Pretty cheap removal spell. Doesn't exile everything you want to kill, but it can kill a lot of stuff for a really cheap entry fee. Only 2 mana to get this thing off, and it's instant speed. It obviously works against fractal tokens. No, it doesn't work against fractal tokens. Oh no, okay, well, I was just thinking, what's the biggest thing we can kill with this? Then I'm like, wait, if we can't kill fractal tokens, that's by far most often the biggest creature on the board, so that could be actually a bit of an issue. I thought fractal tokens were mono green. Glad I double checked that, because that's the first time it's come up. Well, a little less excited about Vanishing Verse here, but it's still cheap removal. Kelpie Guide is solid because it's good in both of the blue colleges. Green-blue ramps up, and blue-red ramps into big spells. So I like Kelpie Guide here. Closing Statement is also an absolute beating of a removal spell in the right deck, because you destroy a creature and get a counter on one of your things. I guess I'll go with the Closing Statement here. That actually does seem a bit better than the rare removal spell there. And here we have Devastating Mastery. This will be good in any kind of control deck if you can make it to 6 mana. Being able to just destroy all non-land permanents is pretty huge against any aggressive deck, and you can always build a deck in a way where you can try to get a 2 or 3 for 1 out of this card, killing 2 or 3 of their cards, and just win the game through card advantage in that way. Get rid of everything they've dumped onto the board while still having multiple cards left over in your hand. Seems like a solid pick to me. We could start with just like going for a Silver Quill control deck. In red, white, and black, that would be kind of the best color scheme for that, because Lorehold, the red-white college, does have some good grindy stuff going for it. Silver Quill does tend to be quite aggressive generally, so it is going to be a little awkward if we stick to just white-black here, and we will need good mana fixing to be able to cast this, costing 4 white there. So we'll see where we end up there. It's not just guaranteed that we'll end up playing that. Now we see a Demogoth Titan. This card's iffy. I've had it be good once, but I've also had it be abysmal once. And I feel like in both of those decks, I had plenty pest tokens and creature production to keep feeding it so it can keep attacking or blocking. I think you really just need a way to give this Trampler something very consistently. But yeah, I've had it not pan out super well for me. It's also a really difficult mana cost unless you're in strictly green-black. That being said, there's nothing in this pack for Silver Quill. Nothing in white and black that we're interested in. Star Pupils, mediocre, just a little 1/1 filler. It does move its counter to something when it dies, which is solid, but Detention Vortex I'm just not a big fan of unless you're very, very aggressive. Nothing in here is like insane, except maybe Demogoth Titan in the right deck, so I guess we scoop that up. And if nothing else, that is some gems taken there. So now we have a Spirit Summoning. It is important to have access to a good amount of lessons and learn cards in this format. They are all good value if they work together in conjunction. That being said, this is one of the weaker lessons, just a 3/2 token. We do have Witherbloom Pledge Mage, 5/5 that gains us life. We can cast that even if we're not in green. Just 2 black and 3. Brackish Trudge can keep coming back if we're gaining life, and Spiteful Squad can be an annoying blocker. Could be fine in a more controlling deck as well, so it would slot in well with Closing Statement and Devastating Mastery. Guess we can roll with Spiteful Squad here. We are seeing a Silver Quill Apprentice. Definitely a more aggressive card than we'd want with a Devastating Mastery, ideally. But I think it's still a pretty powerful card, and I'm happy to pick it up here. If we're 100% locked in on playing Devastating Mastery, we'd probably just take like Lash of Malice here as a decent removal spell. But now we also just have Spiteful Squad and Closing Statement, and these are both just powerful Silver Quill cards, period. So if we just have 3 powerful Silver Quill cards, we can kind of just go into like a mid-rangey strategy and end up not playing Devastating Mastery, and we'll still be fine. We do have a Mage Hunter's Onslaught here, but we already have a Closing Statement, which is a fantastic removal spell, and it's early enough in the draft. I don't think we need to take removal immensely highly, and I really like Combat Professor as a creature. Like, both of these cards, Mage Hunter's Onslaught and Combat Professor, are very good cards. These are both the kind of cards I'm happy to pick relatively early. It's just like, which do I want more here? The Onslaught would lend itself to the controlling strategy if we do try to do that pretty hard, but Combat Professor is going to be so good if we're aggro or mid-range. Such a phenomenal creature. If we go for the controlling route, we want to pick up just a million like Rise of Ecstasies, ideally. Cards like that are like a big removal spell that also sort of draws us a card. So hopefully I can pass up on that Mage Hunter's Onslaught kind of removal, because if we do go the Devastating Mastery control route, we'd like to pick up the removal spells that can also learn that are on our colors. So we'll be taking plenty of other removal highly. So we have Spectre of the Fens. This card has ended up being pretty solid. 2/3 flyer, you can drain some life from your opponent for a bunch. Stonerise Spirit also has been better than it looks, but still not fantastic. Stonebiter's Familiar is good in Lorehold with a bunch of ways to get cards out of your graveyard. We don't really here, though. So we don't have anything to go with the Stowbinder. Just between the Spectre and the 1/2 flyer there for me. And I don't love either of these white cards for us here. Lorehold is pretty clearly open, however, these red cards aren't even that great. Lorehold Apprentice, just letting your spirits tap for a damage. This is definitely the weakest of all the apprentices. Fuming Effigy doesn't do much unless you're really comboing off. Honestly, the best red card here is just like Pillar Drop Warden for Prismari. So this doesn't even look like a massive sign for Lorehold, because they're all kind of mediocre cards. But yeah, I'm happy to take the Campus here. Pillar Drop Rescuer I think is the second best card, but that Dueling Coach is just much too slow, I've found, for this format. Pretty happy to take a Hunt for Specimens here, get a solid Learn card, 2 mana for a 1/1, and you learn. Always a good time. Now we have Expel for that more controlling build, if we go that route. Again, don't have anything to combo with Stonebinder's Familiar yet, although if we took Expel, that would combo with the Stonebinder's Familiar. Tome Shredder would as well if you're in Lorehold. That's like one of the better combos you can do, those two together. Essence Infusion is like mildly playable in a really aggressive deck, but still don't know if that's where I'm at here. Now we're just taking whatever's kind of on color at this point. Alright, and out of pack 2 we see a Rise of Extus. Good for the controlling strategy we might go for with Devastating Mastery here. Retriever Phoenix is a solid card. We could splash that in off of a Lorehold Campus or 2. Lets us learn, and anytime we learn we can bring it back from the grave. Don't have any lessons yet though, so doesn't actually look exceptional here. Yeah, I'm just going to take Rise of Extus. This is always a great removal spell in basically any deck, and if you're a more controlling deck, you can run plenty of copies of this and have a wonderful time. If you're aggressive, though, you generally only want like one because it is quite an expensive spell, being 6 mana. Well, Humiliate is another great card here. Have your opponent reveal their hand, choose an online card from it, discard it, and put a counter on one of your creatures. Not wonderful when you don't have a creature on the board, so maybe like Mage Hunter's Onslaught's better. Just going maximum control. I guess Humiliate is more likely to wheel than Mage Hunter's Onslaught, but still not super likely. And I do like having an Environmental Sciences for the cheap learn cards like Hunt for Specimens to be able to grab that. That does seem kind of important. We're doing pretty decent on removal, so I don't really need Defend the Campus. I don't love Owlin Shield Mage. And Leech Fanatic is pretty solid though. Probably between Environmental Sciences and Leech Fanatic for me, but I'm going to take the Sciences here. We're going to try out like a really creature light Silver Quill deck here and see how that pans out. And here we'll take a Cram Session to get another cheap card that learns, so we can more consistently hit Environmental Sciences when we need it. This also gains us some life, which is solid in control. Now we have another Spiteful Squad or an Unwilling Ingredient. I think I'll take another Spiteful Squad. Another Cram Session, an Expel, or an Agonizing Remorse. Agonizing Remorse very similar to Humiliate, although this does exile the card, so even if it's a Bookworm or something that could come back from the grave, you get rid of it forever. So Agonizing Remorse is solid. Expel is solid because we're a controlling deck. Cram Session, I don't have enough lessons to want another one this soon. We only have Environmental Sciences right now. Yeah, I'm going to try out the Agonizing Remorse here. I feel like we've got a good amount of just removal. Take the white-black dual land here. For collection purposes, as well as it actually being the colors of our deck, that could be pretty solid. Don't really like any of this, but I'll take the Shield Mage. Okay. This pack is also pretty empty for us. I guess Biblioplex Assistant actually could be pretty sweet here. Bringing back a removal spell when we need it and putting something on the board, an evasive threat to put a clock on our opponent. But yeah, Fracture, just because it doesn't kill creatures, doesn't kill the most important card type, even though it is in our college. Another Owlin Shield Mage. Just kind of a control deck, and then we end up just pooping out a bunch of flyers. Hoping for the best there. Revitalize might not be terrible in here. Also, well, I guess we have a million Owlin Shield Mage. I actually think I'd rather have a second Cogwork Archivist before the Owlin Shield Mage, so we have kind of a mill game plan. Because we keep reusing everything in our graveyard, and our opponent just ends up milling out eventually. Take a Letter of Acceptance here. We do have a lot of expensive cards, so being able to ramp out extra mana can be powerful. Now, pretty certain I'm going to take the Radiant Scroll Wielder to try to splash in here. We exile a instant or sorcery at random from our graveyard every turn, and we get to recast that, so that can just be massive, massive value in a deck with just a ton of removal spells like our deck. Just keep killing everything they have on the board over and over again. So I think Radiant Scroll Wielder it shall be. And we do have the Letter of Acceptance, at least, to help splash right now. We have Environmental Sciences with Cram Session and Hunt for Specimens as cheap cards that learn. So we've already got a little bit to help splash, although could have taken like a red-white duel at some point over something else. That might have been helpful here. There's a Cody. This could definitely be a Cody deck. We don't have a lot of permanents. I guess we do have 12 creatures, but we do have a lot of instant sorceries. We have 8 already. Yeah, I think we could try it out with Cody here. Could be pretty nice. So Cody allows you to basically cascade any time that you're casting an instant or sorcery, which means to reveal cards to reveal a cheaper one and cast that as well, which is really, really nice. The only downside, of course, is as long as Cody's on the board, you can't cast any other permanents. But Cody does usually draw removal from your opponent. So eventually Cody will just die, and we'll be able to cast our other flying creatures to try to finish off our opponent that way. And with Cody, as well as the more controlling strategy going on here, we are going to take the cards like Mage Hunter's Onslaught for sure, just the good removal. So that last pick was pretty self-explanatory. We do have a lot of flyers here for Shadewing Laureate, which is cool. I think I like that here. Auric Lore Mage isn't the worst in the world, but it's pretty slow. You know, you can keep tapping it to put a +1/+1 counter on it every turn, but it takes a while for that to get super big. And you can also just use it if you have any good graveyard synergies. But we don't really have that. Another Combat Professor here, or Humiliates. Both of these are super good, but I'm going to take the Combat Professor. We do have an Agonizing Remorse filling out that slot pretty well. Another Mage Hunter's Onslaught seems super fine to me. And we are very low on lessons. We have a few learn cards, but only one lesson. So at this point, I think I have to take something like Introduction to Prophecy over Pilgrim of the Ages or Silver Quill Pledge Mage. Both of these would be definitely super fine, solid additions to our deck, but we've got multiple learn cards and very, very few lessons, so we'll just take an Introduction to Prophecy there. And another Rise of Exodus here, but we're not going to get any more lessons at this point for that, unfortunately. Could see running just a 1/4 to block things in this deck. Humiliate's definitely good. It's going to be interesting to build. I think we probably do end up going the more controlling Cody route than anything else. But we have like good creatures even though we don't have a ton of them. Because we have the good kind of white-black flying theme with Combat Professors and Shadewing Laureate. Don't really like any of this. Double Humiliate now, that's pretty cool. Divine Gambit, actually playable in a slow deck. This card is historically seen by many as unplayable, super bad card, but it's really just a card that's unplayable until the late game. Once your opponent only has like one card left in their hand, then you can absolutely play this, because even if they have their big 6-drop, if you just wait until they have 6 lands out anyway, it's like, well, they could have just cast it in the first place. So you actually are still killing something with this. Because it's not like they're getting something out of this that they would not have played eventually anyway. So as long as you're casting this spell late enough to where speeding up their last threat doesn't do much, you'll have a fine time with it. So we need to cut 9 cards here. It's going to be interesting. How much life gain did I get to go with the Brackish Trudge? Cram Session. We have Environmental Sciences. Pest Token. We have Spectre of Defense, but that costs 1,000,000 mana. Yeah, I don't love the Brackish Trudge here. I think I'm just going to cut that immediately. Don't love our mana for the Radiant Scroll Wielder, and we already have some other pretty big explosive plays like Devastating Mastery, Rise of Exodus. Cody, of course. I think I want to cut a lot of creatures here. Maybe just all the Spiteful Squads, actually. Just go all in on the flying stuff for our creatures. Just a ton of instants and sorceries to combo with Cody, as well as make Devastating Mastery better, killing a lot more of our opponent's cards than ours, making Biblioplex Assistant better. You can just run Combat Professors as miniature Sarah Angels. 4 mana, 3/3 flying Vigilance creatures. Kind of thinking about cutting the Allen Shield Mages. The ward ability on this card doesn't matter a lot unless you're putting a lot of pressure on your opponent in their early game to chip them down to low life totals by the time that you're casting this later on. If you're the kind of deck like we have, where we're just going to be trying to stop them from doing their game plan for a while, we're not really going to be putting any damage on our opponent, so by the time we play an Allen Shield Mage and start attacking with it, they're going to be at like 15 life still by the time they draw removal for this thing. So paying 3 life to kill it is really a low payment. Allen Shield Mage is at its best when you're curving out, spinning out a bunch of 2-3 mana creatures, bashing your opponent over, and then they're spending removal on that stuff, and then by the time you cast the Shield Mage, maybe they're already down to like 9 life. Maybe they don't have the immediate removal spell, so you hit them once with the Shield Mage, all of a sudden they're down to 6, and paying 3 more life when you're at 6 is actually a huge payment. So that's the ideal deck for the Allen Shield Mages, which is why I wasn't trying to take them super highly. It's just nobody really ended up taking them, so I ended up with them. Yeah, I think I'm happy going with like this here. And with the amount of 6 mana stuff we have, Devastating Mastery, 2 Rise of Exodus, 2 Cogwork Archivist here, I could even see cutting another card to play an 18th land in the deck. Although we do have a Letter of Acceptance for an 18th mana source. As well as 2 early learn cards that can both grab Environmental Sciences. Like, we maybe don't need the 18th land here, but it's definitely an option. Humiliate's not incredible in here because we're not going to have creatures out for this all the time. So a lot of the times we're just going to be making them discard a card, in which case Agonizing Remorse is better, just easier to cast, and we exile that card. Yeah, we do have 2 Humiliate, 1 Remorse. I could see just cutting one of those and throwing in 1 more land, calling it a day here. We've got 12 swamps and 10... we've got 12 black cards and 10 white cards. So we want mildly more black than white, but if I throw in 1 more land, might as well make it an even split here, because we'd have a good amount more black than white if I threw in another swamp at that point. Alright, so I think this is going to be our deck, the most controlling Silver Quill deck I've ever played, just because we got that early Devastating Mastery, and decided to see if we could build around that. Then we got a Cody as well, which definitely emphasizes playing a deck with a ton of instants and sorceries, and not a lot of permanent cards like creatures. So very interesting where we ended up here. We'll see how well it pans out. Of course, these are going to be best 2 of 3 matches, so we can sideboard in and out of stuff during our games. I definitely have a lot of time to see where things go here in the sort of evolution of our deck over time. So here we are in round 1. We have the turn 2 hunt for specimens to grab Environmental Sciences, so we know we get at least 3 lands here no matter what happens, and our opponent goes first. So we will be drawing a card on the first turn as well. I think this will be a keep for me. There is our Devastating Mastery. So we'll probably be grabbing a Plains off of our Environmental Sciences, just to get closer to that 4 white that we need. Mage Hunter's Onslaught is the draw. Definitely have quite the stack of removal here. Our opponent is on red and black so far, so they could be Lorehold and Silver Quill overlapping on red and black, and that seems to be the color scheme here. White, black, red. Still nothing cast thus far. Cast our Shadewing Laureate here. 1 more land and we get to start dumping out Combat Professors if we stay in the aggressive position here. But it really just takes 1 creature played from them to turn that around. Selfless Glyph Weaver is the play. They can exile it to give their creatures indestructible till end of turn. Do I want the 2/3? I want the Combat Professor here. I think I want the Combat Professor. We only have 1 black mana, so we can't kill that right now unless we kill it with a closing statement in our end step, and I don't really want to use a closing statement on the 2/3. Pigment Storm to kill the Combat Professor. Definitely going to be a controlling mirror match here. Probably just a couple decks, both absolutely chocked full of removal. So we'll be playing down the Combat Professor again, because it can block their 2/3 without dying. And we're not under a lot of pressure taking 2 damage a turn, even if we don't want to put Combat Professor in harm's way. So again, don't think that casting a closing statement is necessary here, especially when we can use it to kill something like Shadrick's Silver Quill instead. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing. What does this do if we cast it for cheap? They choose 2 of their permanents, put them back in their hand. That would be horrible for us. Let's definitely not do that. Let's just use a closing statement in our end step. It's stopping during our turn here, so they might have the 2 mana +2/+2 hexproof spell, which would be annoying. But I think that is about all they could have to save it. Oh yeah, they can exile the Glyph Weaver to save it for a turn. Give Indestructible, but obviously we don't have any exile removal we can cast here, so we have to just try. Chose to put the counter on the Pest token because they're in a color scheme. Yep, exactly as I was saying, where they seem to be a deck that's just a million removal spells to try to get a Shadrick's Silver Quill out. Just control the game till they draw something like that. So definitely glad I put the counter on the Pest token, because Combat Fester was going to die that turn no matter what. Now we just get to expel Shadrick's Silver Quill. Pretty great draw, because otherwise we wouldn't be killing it right now. We would have to cast a Letter of Acceptance first. I'm going to go ahead and get in for 3. I'm fine going for the race here, because we got plenty more removal coming up to try to protect us. Although there's another Pigment Storm for our opponent to kill our creature and deal a couple damage to us. Divine Gambit here now. We can actually cast Letter of Acceptance and Divine Gambit, which is pretty good. Just late enough in the game, if they had something really good in hand, they would have played it by now. Yep, nothing in hand to even put out. So solid work from Divine Gambit. We're just going to attack in because they're probably killing the Pest token with Pigment Storm. And if they don't kill it with Pigment Storm, then we'll just keep bashing in with it, because now we have the 2nd black mana we need thanks to Letter of Acceptance to kill their creature. Stop the damage that way. Gonna use Make Your Mark to get a 3/2 when they kill our creature here. Got the 6 mana for the Devastating Mastery now, and we might have to just cast it here. I definitely have to kill 2 things if I want to be safe. I think I gotta just cast Devastating Mastery here, because otherwise I only get to cast 1 spell and kill one of their things. We're 1 mana away from the Archivist, but we can cast the Spectre at least. Our opponent does have a Silver Quill Campus out, so they can start scrying every turn now, which makes it likely that they can draw better than us on average. But we've got a pretty great start to the race here, especially if we hit 1 more land, because then we can start draining them 2 life a turn. We obviously have multiple Mage Hunter's Onslaughts and multiple Rise of Ecstasies if we hit 1 more land to deal with any creatures they play. Biblioplex Assistant here. Could throw Devastating Mastery on top. Probably don't want to do that, but I might want to put Environmental Sciences on top at this point, because it looks like we're just not guaranteed to hit the next land here. Unless we do that. And that actually sets up for a pretty good turn next turn, because we can cast Environmental Sciences for 2 and cast Mage Hunter's Onslaught for 4. So it doesn't even stop us from casting a removal spell or anything that turn. Combat Professor is the play from our opponent. We will kill that with a Mage Hunter's Onslaught. Gonna grab another white source, so if I get Devastating Mastery back with Cogwork Archivist or something, I can cast it. Opponent's down to 5 now. Some scrying going on. The biggest thing I'm worried about is just more Pigment Storms, because those all damage us when they cast them. And we're down to 5. Haste creatures would be scary as well. But any non-haste creatures, if they just keep casting stuff like that, we've got a pretty firm lock on this game. Alright, just go with the biggest threat here, Cogwork Archivist. Cody certainly wouldn't have been bad either, but I like getting my opponent as close to dead as quickly as possible here. Humiliates the play. Yeah, put a +1/+1 counter on the Archivist and then just kill them. I need another black mana to do that though. I do force a block here though, so we can use that as a pump spell and a removal spell basically. They have to block or they die here. And then we get to cast Cody, because why not? We don't have any more permanents in our hand, so now if we cast Rise of Exodus, we also get to cast the next spell from our deck, which could be anything that costs 5 or less, which is pretty huge. Illustrious Historian here, just a 2/1. I think we just get it out of the way with a Rise of Exodus. Got an Agonizing Remorse as well, but no reason to do that. There is the concession from our opponent, because we can swing in for 5 there. So interesting matchup. Our opponent has a lot of removal spells, not a ton of creatures. I actually think I'm a pretty big fan of this matchup, because a lot of the power in their deck is just the few creatures that they have are quite good. So just having a ton of removal spells in the deck does feel good in this matchup for sure. So I kind of like the deck as is. Yeah, I think we just run it back here. Well, Hunt for Specimens turn 2 for Environmental Sciences again. Seems like that Environmental Sciences was definitely a very important pickup. We could also humiliate our opponent there on turn 2, but I do really need to make sure I hit my land drops as often as possible. Alright, we've hit our 4th mana now. So we can humiliate. We can Combat Professor, Biblioplex Assistant, or Spectre. Kind of like Combat Professor here. It's going to be a while before we get to drain life with Spectre, but Combat Professor can immediately start getting extra damage for us by giving the Pest token +1 power here. And now they need a combat trick to kill our Combat Professor. I find trading 1 for 1. No, I think I race pretty well here. So I don't really want to trade our Combat Professor for a combat trick, and we're pretty safe even if they are bluffing there. Now we did draw another good flyer here. Rather play the Spectre or the Shadewing? Probably the Shadewing, in case they do start using a stack of removal again. If they want to kill Combat Professor first, we get a +1/+1 counter this way. We're just going to keep taking that Pledge Mage damage. We're still pretty safe at 16 life here. Definitely winning the race. Looks like our opponent is stuck off of the red mana here. Don't add any damage unless I humiliate here. If I humiliate, I get to hold up Expel as well. Yeah, I kind of like that. Let's see what they've got going on in there. Oh, wow. Play set of Combat Professor, a heated debate, Beaming Defiance, make your mark. Well, kind of want to just get rid of a heated debate and see if they just don't draw the 4th mana for the next Combat Professor, and if they do, we can just start killing everything they play. We have 5 mana already, so we can definitely... Well, we can probably Rise of Exodus pretty soon. This is not great. I'm going to get rid of the heated debate. I think I like making our Combat Professor 4 toughness so it can attack in against one of their Combat Professors. They do have the Beaming Defiance to give +2/+2 hexproof. But now that we know about it, we can play around it. So I don't want to try to expel Lowerhold Pledge Mage right now, because they just drop Beaming Defiance. Looks like they didn't hit the 4th land, which just straight up means we basically win on the spot. So there's the concession from our opponent. That puts us at 1 win and no losses to start it off no matter what. We are getting a player draft token out of this to play a Premier Draft or Traditional Draft. All right. Round 2 here, we get that cram session into Environmental Sciences. Should be great. I'll keep this one. We also have Agonizing Remorse to mess with whatever our opponent's doing. We have a Flying Threat to get on the board, as well as multiple removal spells. Definitely like the hand here. Opponent starts off with double white. Let's go ahead and get our planes here, so I can cast a creature and get things rolling. Stuck on 2 mana, so we'll just drop the Shadewing Laureate and the Silverquill Campus here. Start slapping our opponent while they're stumbling on mana. Still mono white for now, and the Silverquill Pledge Mage is the play. Now we've drawn Humiliate, so that's definitely better than Agonizing Remorse here. We can cast that and cast an Expel or Hunt for Specimens, so I like that. Well, they really need black mana. They're only on 3 mana right now. Elocution's really not good if we expel. Neither is Professor's Warning. Kinda wanna just get rid of... Well, Vanishing Verse doesn't even kill anything right now. Just get rid of the late game Rise of Exodus. Like, both of these, it's gonna be quite a while before they play them. They need 2 more Swamps for Mage Hunters. They need 3 more lands for Rise of Exodus. I guess we just get rid of one of these things. Probably Leech Fanatic, actually. Now they're stuck with 1 creature on the board that we can pretty easily kill. And then it's just a bunch of removal they can't cast. You know, combat tricks don't work once that creature's dead. So if Silverquill Pledge Mage taps here, we'll just expel it. Don't need to do that unless it's going to gain life, though. But yeah, expelling it still does seem pretty good. I don't know. I'll pass here, see if they get greedy with the life gain spell. Looks like no. We can also just cast Hunt for Specimens here, and that forces them to give it flying if they want to attack in here, or use a combat trick when we block. And then we can just expel. There's the first black mana. Oh yeah, they don't have black mana to cast anything last turn. That's why they didn't do any combat tricks. Sorry, I'm pretty tired right now. Had a really long day of work. before the first day of the draft challenges, so I am going to be pretty out of it in this video. Go for the block, and then get the 2-for-1 when they do something to save this. Resolves. Resolves. Gets exiled. Now they have no creatures. No super castable removal. You get to scry 2, draw 2. Ooh, Combat Professor. Oh, it's scry 2, draw 1. You probably should have put the land on bottom then. I don't really want to cast Cody anymore now. So we're just Agonizing Remorse and see what their last card here is. Crushing Disappointment. Just get rid of that. Stop the card draw here. They don't have anything that can kill these until they hit another swamp. They can kill Combat Professor. They can't kill Cody, and I can play Cody and Mage Hunter's Onslaught in the same turn. So we'll go for the Cody. And there's the concession. Kind of just like running it back here. Another very similar matchup. Definitely looks like the mirror match here. We're both playing Silver Quill decks. They also had a ton of removal. We're gonna have to mulligan this one. And this is super fine. Hunt for Specimens grabs Environmental Sciences, so we know that we have the 4 mana we need for the Combat Professors. Silver Quill Silencer. So they get to name something they saw us play last game. If they choose Hunt for Specimens, they definitely did it here. That was our turn 2 play last game. They can also just choose Environmental Sciences, that way anything we learn with ends up giving them the card draw. Crushing Disappointment is the choice. Interesting. I do not have one of those in my deck, so that is good for me. We can go for a closing statement here if I really want to kill the Silencer, but don't really need to kill it immediately. And we're not putting a counter on anything good by doing that. It's just Sciences. I actually want to grab our second black source here for Mage Hunter's Onslaughts. And chump blocking the 3/2 does not do anything for us, so we'll get that 1 damage in. Opponent's probably sitting on a ton of removal here, we'll find out. If they have an instant speed one, they'll use it here before we go to combat to stop an extra damage. Vanishing Verse it is. We may be playing against the other Silver Quill drafter in our draft pod, because we did pass up on a Vanishing Verse. Get another Combat Professor out here, again playing it pre-combat to get extra damage off of our Pest token. And we will be going for the Rise of Exodus on the Silver Quill Silencer here. But it did bring us down to 10, so it did plenty work, and we do draw another Rise of Exodus, which is fantastic. We will be using that one to discard a land and draw a card, though. Because that's the last lesson that we have. I'm going to spread out our damage here. In case they have instant speed removal, but if they have Expel, it's probably better to keep Combat Professor untapped. But looks like Rise of Exodus is the play anyway. Inkling summoning. Opponent has one-upped us in the quality of their lessons. We definitely are missing out on that front in our deck. I like these. I like Cogwork Archivist a lot. I already have more removal in hand, so I don't really need the Onslaught immediately, but it would also be fine. Want to put a counter on our 1/1 or just do the sorcery speed removal here? I think I just do the sorcery speed removal. Keep getting in for one, little pest. I believe in you. We'll see if we get to keep any of our threats at any point here. Probably not. Probably the hard removal mirror match. Fracture, the main deck. Well, no, it's game 2. They could have sideboarded in Fracture, but I don't remember if I played any artifacts, enchantments, or planeswalkers. Fracture definitely panning out well there. Should not have played the land so I could Rise of Exodus and discard a card to draw a card off of the learn effect. But I totally forgot about that. Combat Professor out, so we can Closing Statement that. Or Rise of Exodus that. Well, since we drew the land, we'll go ahead and Rise of Exodus it. Get rid of their Rise of Exodus. Discard the land to draw a card. Agonizing Remorse is the draw. We can see what's in their hand here. May as well. They're just going to play everything they draw into, so now if it's a sorcery speed removal spell or something, we get rid of it. Combat Trick as well. Get that out of here. So that's nice. They've got one top deck here, or they're dead on board. And there's the concession. So 2-0 to start things off in the Strixhaven Draft Challenge. No matter what happens, here we go at least 2-2 for a nice average run. Get a player draft token and a few packs. Pleasantly surprised by how this deck has gone so far. Have not lost a game somehow. I don't think this deck is great. It's definitely a solid controlling deck. But I feel that Silverquill's at its best in the aggressive strategies, so it's certainly not the greatest Silverquill deck I've ever seen. Also, our lessons are pretty meager. They're not great, and they're very few and far between. It's going to be a little bit of a risky keep, but I'm not sure it's worth the mulligan. We have removal on turn 3 here if they're really aggressive. I would say the matchups I'm the most worried about are the kind of decks that we haven't played against yet. We played against 2 decks we're really good against, which is just like other controlling decks. Or just other decks that don't have a ton of creatures, because then we can easily kill everything they play. If we play against an aggressive deck that curves out, plays a 1-mana creature, a 2-mana creature, a 3-mana creature, we're going to have a bad time any game that we don't draw our Devastating Mastery. I actually just want Introduction to Prophecy this game. We got a million lands. That gives us a turn 3 play if we're not casting Closing Statement, which we probably won't. Yeah, I don't think we're casting that here. Could trade with Star Pupil, but that makes the Dusk Mage a 3/4 that draws a card when it dies. So that's something I don't think we want to happen. Devastating Mastery is something we definitely want to happen here. And we want to draw a Rise of Exodus as well. We have 6 mana already, so we can cast all of this by the time we get all these lands out. So let's just draw them both. And we just want to grind things out long enough for them to dump as many creatures on the board as possible. Devastating Mastery going to be at its absolute best in game 1. It is going to get a lot weaker after they can play around it. But I expect it to do a lot of work this game. And I'm not going to play into it so hard that I just refuse to put anything on the board here. because that'll look really suspicious. And also, I'll take a ton of damage if I do that. Combat Professor allows me to block the 2/3 without losing a creature, which is pretty nice. But yeah, I can absolutely Devastating Mastery even if I'm killing 2 of my creatures. If it's in a position where it gets my opponent down to just like 1 card left in their hand, we can easily win off of that just by having the 3 more removal spells that I have in hand for the next 3 creatures that they draw, especially when one of them grabs us another card. The Rise of Extus here drawing us another card by discarding a land. Study Break here is pretty terrifying for us. Shut off the blockers and an Expanded Anatomy to add on to the damage. Next turn we get to hold up Closing Statement at instant speed to make sure we don't die, but we are down to 7 here. Need to make sure to play specifically the white lands so that we have 4 white next turn. Alright, we just need to not die this turn, and if we don't die this turn, we get to cast Devastating Mastery next turn. So we'll just stop as much damage as we possibly can here off of our blocks, because all our creatures are going to die to Devastating Mastery anyway. If we can avoid using Closing Statement, we will, so that we can hold on to that for their next threats after the board wipe. Alright, this is just a solid block on board. It's also not suspicious, doesn't make them think we have a board wipe or anything, because it's like, yeah, make the chump block with the block that saves Combat Professor, just take 1 here and gain 1. Stay at 7. Just a solid block all around. They've got 2 cards in hand here. Really want at least one of those to be dumped on the board here. Alright, that works too, because Combat Professor was going to die anyway, so getting the removal drawn out onto it is nice. The only way things could go better is if their last card in hand's another creature that they dump right now, but nope. Looks like they're going to hold on to that one, but let's just devastate this board away. They could have the indestructible combat trick here. Save the 5/3 to put us down to 2. But it looks like they do not. And that puts them down to 1 card in hand against our 3 removal spells to deal with the first few creatures that they play. No creatures yet. Now we've got 4 removal spells. Feeling pretty confident here. I'm actually going to hold on to this land for our Rise of Extuses, so we can discard it to draw a card. Although if I play the land, I can hold up Closing Statement at instant speed. But I don't expect a flash creature or a haste creature out of Silverquill. Pillar Drop Rescuer, that's not good for me, because that is 2 creatures off of 1 card. A 2/2 flyer and a Silverquill Pledge Mage, it looks like. Luckily they don't have the mana to cast both immediately, so we can just kill them 1 per turn. Drawn to Expel, so yet another removal spell. I think we Rise of Extus and just draw another card here. Yeah, use the most expensive removal first. Get rid of... These are all annoying. I don't expect tapping creatures down to do much this game, because we're just going to kill every creature they play. So what would be the most annoying if they looped it? I guess Study Break still would be, because they can learn off of it. Yeah, we'll just get rid of that, I guess. And I don't really want another land, but I could gain some life off Environmental Sciences. But I think I still want to just discard a land to draw a card there. Silverquill Pledge Mage. That is it. Rise of Extus and draw a card again. There we go. There's our threat to try to close the game out. Spectre of the Fens. Would expect them to have removal by now, though. Got a couple cards just sitting in their hand. Ooh, Cody's fun. Should probably Agonizing Remorse before I play the Spectre, so if they have removal, we get it out of there. Professor's Warning and Defend the Campus. Defend the Campus, destroying a creature with power 4 or greater. Professor's Warning being a card that can give Indestructible to something to shut off one of our removal spells if we use something that destroys. I think I honestly want to kill Professor's Warning, because Defend the Campus is not going to kill my Spectre of the Fens, and that's our threat that we have immediately. Defend the Campus can kill our Archivists, but we don't have any of those right now. Whereas we do have Destroy-based removal right now. Alright, all in on Spectre of the Fens here. It's going to be gaining us a lot of life throughout this game too, getting us really nice and safe at a hearty life total. To the point where I'm not even going to play Cody this game, because then I don't show them that I have a Cody in this deck, and also I can cast any other bigger creatures I draw into instead to put more pressure on them. We've got enough mana to cast a Divine Gambit and still drain them with Spectre of the Fens, so I like going for that here. Because if they have another good card in their hand, we can just kill that as well after they dump it on the board. And I'm going to hold on to this Plains. Again, we do have like a cram session still in this deck that learns. So if we learn again, we'll choose to discard this Plains and draw another card. Because, again, Environmental Sciences just does nothing at this point. There's the Archivist that does immediately get killed by Defend the Campus, so let's not do that. I think we just Closing Statement this Combat Professor, get another counter on the Spectre for more damage. Cody does pressure them with more damage now. They draw removal for Spectre, we're out of it. Maybe we should be casting Cody at this point. Honestly, I'm probably just going to cast the Archivist next turn anyway and just run it into the Defend the Campus. Leonin Light Scribe. Have to kill that with an Expel when it tries to attack us. Mage Hunter's Onslaught's the draw, though. We have 5, 6, 7, 8. Bam, that's 9 mana. That's enough to drain them once and Expel, but not drain them once in Mage Hunter's Onslaught, so I'm not going to Mage Hunter's Onslaught here. Because we want to speed up that clock by attacking and draining them life here. They're dead next turn. So we definitely want to get that life drain off rather than going for the Onslaught. We could also just not kill the Light Scribe. We're at 10 now, so it's not the riskiest thing in the world to just leave it. Alright, let's see if this goes through. And there's the concession. We don't want to play Combat Professor there, even though we could play Combat Professor, give it +1/+0 Vigilance and attack in. If we did that, it would have 4 power. It would die to the Defend the Campus. So we actually don't want to go for the Combat Professor pre-combat there, like you would usually do with Combat Professor. Alright. Feels like I'm gonna run it back. That tends to be what we do here. We just don't have a great sideboard, to be honest. Was not the greatest draft ever. Has been panning out pretty good though, thus far, though. Of course, we did get the massive 3 or 4 for 1 Devastating Mastery there, though. Ooh, Cody on turn 3 if we draw land. Don't mind if I do. If we draw land early enough, we can even Agonizing Remorse them turn 2. Ooh, yeah, that's going to be the plan here. Agonizing Remorse them turn 2, see what their game plan is, and try to slow that down this game. And then drop a Cody turn 3, see what happens. Even if they just kill Cody, we're fine, because we get a Spectre out later. And we can gain life off Cram Session and just start killing things like usual. See what they have. Oh my god. Oh dear lord. They have a terrifyingly powerful aggressive start. That's what they have. They've got the Light Scribe doing a ton of work with any combat tricks they have. Pledge Mage doing the same. Kind of want to get rid of the Pledge Mage. If I get rid of the Pledge Mage, they can only just play the Light Scribe this turn. And Light Scribe is really good if they draw into a combat trick, but if they don't, it's not that much damage. It's between these two, and it's pretty hard choice between them. I think I'd just get rid of the 3-power one, though. Alright, Light Scribe is out, and they're bashing in for 2 here, down to 17. Come on, Cody. Do your thing. Please. I beg of you, I'm scared. Combat Professor is the play from our opponent. Unfortunately, Cody adds 1 mana of every color, so we can't cast Mage Hunter's Onslaught off of Cody, but we can cast Closing Statement off of it. If we do that, Cody's tapped down and can't block, but it's still probably worth it. We could also go for the Closing Statement during their turn, but then if I hit a sorcery, I don't get to cast it, which I think is a pretty big downside, because if we hit a sorcery like Mage Hunter's Onslaught or something, we really want to cast it here. Let's kill Combat Professor and make Cody a 2/5. Hope to hit another Mage Hunter's Onslaught, ideally. Expel? That works too. Kill Light Scribe here. And that actually makes it so they don't have any creatures with mana cost 3 or less to bring back with Pillar Drop Rescuer and Grave, which is super good. Okay, we don't have the mana to loop things off Cody here. Unless we go for Cram Session, but I don't have a 1 mana card in this deck, so Cram Session doesn't hit anything. Yep, if I cast Mage Hunter's Onslaught, I can't cast it off of Cody. Okay, so we're not doing a Cody thing this turn. So do we Cram Session or Mage Hunter's Onslaught? I could Cram Session, get the land to be able to Rise of Exodus next turn. That does seem pretty big. Yeah, let's Cram Session Environmental Sciences here. It also gains a ton of life. So puts us at a hearty life total. And yeah, now we have the mana to Rise of Exodus next turn. And Cody can just sit here and block these small creatures. Inquisition of Kozilek. Everything costs 4 or more, so that's just nothing here. Does trigger the Clever Lumimancer, though. It is a Magecraft trigger. So they can attack both in if they have a pump spell. If they don't have a pump spell, though, they definitely don't have a good attack, and it looks like they just choose not to attack here. I think we go for the Rise of Exodus off of Cody here, so that we can grab another card afterwards. We hit a Humiliate to make them discard a card. That's pretty good. Learn the Introduction to Prophecy. 2 Pillar Drop Rescuers with nothing to bring back. Fine by me. We'll get rid of one of those. This has been the weirdest draft. This draft challenge here just feels like our opponents have been getting just exceptionally unlucky. The Inquisition of Kozilek, when your opponent doesn't have anything cheap enough, the Pillar Drop Rescuers when I've been exiling all of their cheap creatures, and I have been killing their creatures, just not the ones that are cheap enough to bring back with the Pillar Drop Rescuers. Alright. We do have the mana to go for Mage Hunter's Onslaught and loop things with Cody now. But if I loop a thing with Cody, I'm likely to just hit another removal spell, so I don't want to go for Cody if they only have one card on board, I think. Just kind of want to just sit here. Maybe Introduction to Prophecy to set things up. Another Mage Hunter's Onslaught? Sure. Eventually we can use our own Devastating Mastery to kill our Cody so we can cast our other threats. Do I want to just slam in for 3 here? We know they get to hit us for 2 if we do. They're at 27 life, so actually probably not. Getting a little worried about maybe milling ourselves by doing too much in terms of Cody shenanigans. But we're still going to keep doing Cody for shenanigans every time we can get a 2-for-1. Just get 2 removal spells at the price of 1. Alright, so let's do it here. We need another black so that we can cast this. Kill the Inkling and hopefully hit Divine Gambit to kill the 0/1 as well. Cool, they do get to drop the Pillar Drop Warden for free and slam in for 3 on us, but it's still definitely worth it because they're not getting anything back from Grave still if they choose to put that out. Yeah, they just hit us for 2 actually, not even 3. So we get on to 15 here, that's fine. Guiding Voice, though. Solid draw to go with that. Make it even bigger. Expand Anatomy to hit for a lot of damage here. We, of course, do still have the removal to clear that out of the way and start slapping in with Cody. So we will be doing that. Yep. Don't want to loop anything here. Just want to start hitting for 3. We actually don't have... We just have Hunt for Specimens is the only 3 or less spell we could hit there. There's Devastating Mastery. Are we just holding on to that to kill Cody and then we just start casting all this when they have got no cards in hand? Probably. Could actually just cast this for 4 and then I get to cast Laureate immediately. It's actually pretty nice. I'm just going to do that. Like, I want to kill Cody here. So we get that damage in. 4 mana for the board wipe. Because even if they bounce things back to their hand, it's just a token to bounce. I get to kill my own Cody. And now we get to cast Laureate. And be able to cast all this other stuff. Take control of the game easily. Because Booby Plex Assistant puts another Rise of Exodus on top. Or even Devastating Mastery if something goes super wrong. Alright, 1/2 flyer it is. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 mana means we get to cast Combat Professor and Spectre of the Fens. Just get him out here. Make this clock as fast as possible. Scry on the Silverwool campus. And they're definitely thinking about it, whatever it is here. Start draining them with Spectre of the Fens, I think. Doesn't really matter what we give vigilance to. They only have a 1-2 flyer out, so they all block pretty equally good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Don't have enough mana to drain life and play Biblioplex Assistant, so I'd rather just drain life. Biblioplex Assistant is a 2-1, so just trades for their Stonerise Spirit. That's not super exciting. Letter of Acceptance. Not terrible. We can cycle that to draw a card if nothing else, and we have enough mana to cast that and still drain life here. So I think we shall. There is the concession from our opponent. Again, just getting into a position where you can clear your opponent's whole board and still have cards left over is always going to be a winning position. That time just by being able to cast multiple removal spells every turn, thanks to Cody being a pretty oppressive rare. So the devastating Mastery win game 1 and the absolute Cody win game 2. And that does put us to 3 wins, which is where you're getting value here. You get 2 player draft tokens. Those are for Premier Draft or Traditional Draft events, which cost 1,500 gems. So I spent 3,000 gems to play this, and I got 3,000 gems worth of player draft tokens, which is what I would have spent those gems on if this event didn't exist. Plus just 6 packs in addition, so whatever happens here, I've got the value. And we'll see where things go from here. Definitely happy with whatever happens now. Already definitely doing way better than I expected to do. I wasn't super excited with where we ended up in the draft or in the deck building. And I'm pretty exhausted today after a long day of work, but I wanted to make sure to get these draft challenge videos out to you as soon as they started. So this is the tired gauntlet draft. But I am sure the next draft challenges we do will be a little more in-depth and energetic. I've been playing first this whole time, haven't I? We might be a deck that wants to draw first, maybe. I don't know. I'm just going to keep playing first. That's generally the right thing to do in Limited. Opponent takes a mulligan, it looks like. And we do have our Silver Quill Campus, so we can be scrying in the late game, which is nice. We've got plenty of lands here, so I'm going to cram Session for an Introduction to Prophecy. Just don't have a lot of white sources. If we do draw our Devastating Mastery, that could be a problem. Only 2 white mana here. We would need 4 for that. Now we have 3 white mana, so that's pretty good. See what we're introducing to Prophecy here. Just a Shadewing Laureate. Don't mind if I do. Gives us something to play next turn. Otherwise, we weren't casting anything till turn 6. And we are against a Quandrix deck. Quandrix always a scary matchup. They have a lot of great ramp spells that put a bunch of lands on the field. Then once they have that mana, they can just start repeatedly casting massive, massive fractals. And of course, they have cards like Scourge Colony and Vortex Runner, both of these getting better in the late game after they have ramped out and gotten those 8 lands into play. So we'll see how things work here, but a good Quandrix deck is very explosive later in the game. Oh my god! They made my Shadewing Laureate purple. Disgusting. Hate it. Well, this is going to be a little weird. We're just going to discard both cards out of our hand, I guess. Yeah, they have a land and a Biblioplex Assistant. I guess we just kill the Biblioplex Assistant. Probably should have done Remorse first in case I wanted to cast another one of the discard spells after I have a creature out. But I was expecting 2 non-lands there, and then I was just going to cast both anyway. Field Trip is the play. We could Agonizing Remorse to get rid of their Fractal Summoning they're probably grabbing here. But then I won't be killing anything that they currently have on the board, so I'll be taking a lot of damage. But it might be worth it. Yeah, we could kill a Fractal Summoning with this Agonizing Remorse. But then I don't play a blocker, so I take 6. Is that a game I win? If I choose to take 6 here, I also take 1 from casting Agonizing Remorse, so I go down to 12, then take 6, but then they don't have a card in hand. I'm at 6 life when it goes to my turn. Then I drop an Archivist. I don't think that's a good game for me. I think I drop Archivist right now, because now the only thing that can hit me is Needlethorn Drake. They dump all their mana into this Fractal Summoning, and then I just kill it with Rise of Exodus. When they hit their 8th land, I'm going to have a big problem, because when they hit their 8th land, they're going to be able to hit me unblockable with Vortex Runner. But even when they hit the 8th land, the Scourge Colony is small enough to kill with the Archivist. Alright, so we Rise of Exodus here, I think trying to draw a card, but we kill the 5/5, because the Archivist can't block a 5/5 well. And if they hit the land, Vortex Runner and Needlethorn Drake start getting in, so we are really hoping for just more removal to be drawn off of the discard. And there we go, there's a Rise of Exodus, there's one more removal. Gonna hold on to the land to discard that to that Rise. But we're likely using this on their Vortex Runner. Yep, definitely using this on their Vortex Runner. We're taking 4 now, down to 8. Spectre of the Fens is the draw. That can kill the Needlethorn Drake. But I don't really want to. I'm probably going to want to drain life from our opponent with that. It's not likely Agonizing Remorse is going to be good, but I still think it's more likely than it will be than a land will be, because we already have the 6 mana we need to drain life with Spectre of the Fens. And they could hit another learn card like Field Trip and pick up another Fractal Summoning. They'll want to spend all of their mana into a Fractal Summoning, so they're not going to want to cast it the turn they draw it. Alright, so I went for the Spectre of the Fens here because ideally they don't draw into anything there. If they don't draw into anything when we cast Spectre of the Fens, we're in the winning board position, because Needlethorn hits us for 1 a turn, but Spectre hits them for 2 and gains us 2 a turn. Now that they have Witherbloom Pledge Mage, I'm a little worried that I might have to Devastating Mastery. I don't have to do it quite yet. I can double block Witherbloom Pledge Mage here, but I don't love doing that. I definitely can't choose to cycle this Letter of Acceptance. I need it for the 4th white mana right now. I'm actually going to play this land here. Probably go for the double block. Really don't like losing the Spectre, but it would be worth it to not die. If they just attack Needlethorn Drake, I think I'm very happy. Or if they don't attack. Either of those seems pretty awesome to me. Alright, I'll take 1. And then I'll gain 2. Alright, now we have all the mana we need to cast a Devastating Mastery without the Letter of Acceptance, so we can go ahead and draw a card off of that. I think I'll go ahead and do that right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I'll still have 6 mana up, so I'll do that right now in case I do draw something to kill Witherbloom Pledge Mage, so I know whether or not I want to make the double block and just try to Devastating Mastery them. And I did just hit a land, so we're probably still on the Devastating Mastery plan if they do end up playing another creature. Sending in with the Witherbloom Pledge Mage and stuff. Just keep taking 1. Cody. I think I hold on to you. Because we're We're looking like a devastating mastery game here. Yeah, I think I just hold on to Cody. Although we're already like halfway through the deck, so... So Cody's not really going to be grabbing us a ton of cards even if we play Cody after the Mastery. Oh, they're going to kill the Archivist here, looks like. Let's drain them some life. We don't have everything at instant speed, so the sequencing here really doesn't matter. And then, what do we have? It's our best card to throw back. Just another Rise of Exodus, probably. Sure. I'm actually pretty happy to keep the Spectre around, because then if I do draw a removal spell... Unfortunately didn't. If I do draw a removal spell, I get to kill Scourge Colony and keep winning the race. As it stands, I'm pretty sure a Devastating Mastery is required here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Will be 10 mana here. 2 mana away from using the Spectre's ability twice per turn. We're going to go to 11 here. We don't have to Devastating Mastery immediately, because on the turn that we're going to Devastating Mastery, we can also just get a chump block and take 1 extra damage to maybe get them to play 1 more creature. So I'll see if we can get them to play another creature here and just go for the chump block on Scourge Colony. Or if they have removal for Spectre, then that also gets another card for us. So we're at 11. If we take 5, we go to 6. I could still try and draw that next removal, but they've been scrying to the top, which gets me all kinds of worried. Just do the chump block, do the Devastating Mastery. This almost definitely looks really suspicious to them, though, so they might not cast another creature, but they did. So that's good. I think we just slam it on down. See what their last card in hand is here, maybe. It looks like everything is just killed. Now do we want a Biblioplex Assistant? What do I pick up with that? I don't really want a Devastating Mastery again. I could see Rise of Exodus being just a solid card to have on top after that. So we know we draw another removal spell for whatever they play next turn. If they play something next turn, and now we start hitting for 2 a turn. Rise of Exodus is also a great spell with Cody, because it's a 6 mana card that'll loop into a 5 mana or less card afterward. 1 card in hand. I don't think I'm going to Agonizing Remorse unless they learn for another Fractal Summoning at this point. We have a Closing Statement at 5 mana, 3 Mage Hunter's Onslaughts at 4 mana, and Expel at 3, Hunt for Specimens, and Divine Gambit at 2. So we actually do still have plenty of instants and sorceries to hit off of Cody at this point. Even though we're over halfway through the deck, we just have a deck absolutely crammed full of instant and sorcery removal spells. So we still have cards to hit off Cody. Okay, we do get to scry here. I'll take it. Just sit on a stack of removal to lock down the game. They're down to 9, 3 turns until lethal. Eureka moment. Draw a couple cards and play another land. Actually dug farther into their deck than we have, down to 15 cards now. Gnarled Professor is pretty solid here, because even if I kill it with Rise of Exodus, they do get to learn, so they grab another card off of it, although I will probably Agonizing Remorse that card if they don't play it immediately. Containment Breach, go ahead and kill Cody here. Yeah, that seems solid. They don't get a Pest token because Cody costs 3, not 2 or less. but still, super solid lesson to have here. Cody is very dead. Goes to our turn, we'll go ahead and scry. Don't want any land at this point. Do hit a closing statement, so we can kill Gnarled Professor and up our damage back up to 3 a turn to keep them on a 3-turn clock. Seems like the way to go to me. Although, this is using an instant speed removal, our only instant speed removal spell in hand. So if they do... I'll just give it hexproof till end of turn? Sure. I guess I'll take 6. How worried are we about a pump spell? If we're super worried about a pump spell, I can hold Biblioplex Assistant back and Shump block. I guess I'll Agonizing Remorse here, that way if they want to kill me off a pump spell, they have to draw it right now. Get out of here, Field Trip. Alright, did they blindly draw the pump spell off the top? No, but they did have a good removal spell on top. They might have actually scried to the top earlier and I didn't notice it. Not entirely sure. Alright, Onslaughts and a Rise of Exodus. Don't have the land to discard to a Rise of Exodus to draw another card. I think I'll just Mage Hunter's Onslaught here. Even though the Rise is revealed, I'll hold on to that for when I draw another land. Although I have been scrying a couple to the bottom. So, 14 cards in my deck, 14 cards in their deck, but they draw first, so this could actually be a mill game here. So they are going to mill out before me, if we can keep from dying, but we're at 3 life, so it'll be a battle to do so. Cogwork Archivist, the perfect card to not mill out. We have 10 mana, so we can cast Mage Hunter's Onslaught and Cogwork Archivist. So good in these long, grindy mill games like this, to where if it does go to mill, we win eventually. Even if it doesn't, it does fuel our deck, putting in our best cards from our grave back in there. Just a deck absolutely full of Rise of Ecstasies. Although we can also just hit them with it twice to kill them, so I guess that's the game plan for now. Down to 4. We pass the turn with 2 removal spells up. If they just play 2 blockers, we can still break through. We have the 10 mana to cast both of these. They have to play something with haste here, or kill our Cogwork Archivist. Or play more than 2 blockers. I suppose a Pest Summoning would do it. That would be 2 blockers, and they gain a life when they die. So even though I can kill them both, I can only exile one of them. So one of those would gain them 1 life, put them to 1 instead of 0 when we slap them for 4. Eureka moment to draw more cards here. Another land, 2 cards in hand. Leyline Invocation it is. We can clear that out of the way with Rise of Extus. Go ahead and do our scry, just in case. We don't know what their final card is here, but it looks like they are going to scoop them up. So we go for the scry there, keep getting every little bit of value we can, because we did already see a Snakeskin Veil from them, so potentially a second Snakeskin Veil to save them from a removal spell there would make us want to assure that we're still hitting powerful cards, and we would have kept the Expel on top. That way, if they did do the Snakeskin Veil there, we'd have to not attack with Archivist, we'd have to block with it if they sent it in, and thanks to having Expel, we could kill it before it kills our Archivist when it attacks us. So, Expel was a really great card to have on top, just in case of that second Snakeskin Veil or anything like that. Anyways, as always, I think we're running it back. Not a single loss thus far. Absolute insanity from this pretty average Silver Quill control deck here. 7 wins and 0 losses at this point. Because we are 3 wins, 2-0 each time, and then 1 win so far in this round. Little awkward keep here. We need another black mana for the Mage Hunter's Onslaught. We know we get to cast Combat Professor, but I'm definitely worried about this hand's prospects. The biggest thing I'm worried about against this deck is them curving out with the stuff like they did in the last game with the Scurrid Colony into the Vortex Runner. Yeah, I'm going to mulligan here because it just doesn't have any of that early game action. This is even worse than the early game, but I'm not going to mulligan down to 5, unfortunately. Yeah, I'd say just the number one biggest thing I'm worried about is them curving out against us. And us not having the immediate devastating mastery like we had in round 1. Quandrix Apprentice turn 2. We do have a turn 3 removal spell now. An Expel. Great draw. Venturous Impulse from our opponent. That's going to draw them another creature, and the Apprentice is going to draw them another land. Looks like they didn't have a land in the top 3 for the Apprentice, but that dug farther to hitting a land if they needed one there. Looks like they didn't need one, so they just grab a Zimone instead. Turn 3, we could Expel, or we can Letter of Acceptance, get closer to the Rise of Ecstasies. They're only hitting us for 2 here, so I think I just want to speed up the Rise of Ecstasies. There's Zimone. Now we probably Expel something. Zimone draws them 1 card per turn right now, draws them 2 cards per turn once they have 8 or more lands. Zimone definitely really good in this matchup because we're kind of just a slow controlling deck, so we'll need to kill Zimone pretty quickly. We may even just kill Zimone here. I mean, they only have 1 mana up, so I'll go ahead and Expel Quandrix Apprentice, and then Rise of Ecstasies Zimone. This is a Snakeskin Veil. They have 1 green up, and they're holding here. Yep. Unfortunate. But we're still going to kill Zimone first, I think. No, Zimone only does 1 damage. We need to stop damage before anything else here. We can kill Zimone this turn if they don't play another big threat. If they do, we'll have to Rise of Ecstasies, whatever that threat is. Witherbloom Pledge Mage. That is probably getting risen. Do have Mage Hunter's Onslaught. Do we have enough mana to cast both? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we do. We got Devastating Mastery coming up. I think we do want to draw that, but we don't have time to just not kill something here. I guess we can take 6 and then kill both. Yeah, sure. Let's make it look like we're really digging for an out here. Sacrifice that. Take it all, and then kill everything. Going pretty low here. Definitely the smart play, just draw off Zimone and slam in for 5 here, I think. Don't commit anything else to the board. Still get the 2 for 1 off Devastating Mastery, better than anything else. 3 for 1, I'll take that as well. And just slam it down. Could have held on to the land to discard to this Rise of Ecstasies here. Needlethorn Drake and an 8/8. Ooh, Silver Quill Campus is not a land we want to hold on to, though. I kind of want a Divine Gambit here, and if they just poop out a really big scary creature, we can also just Mage Hunter's Onslaught that. And if they don't, we can just play Combat Professor. Gnarled Professor, alright, Mage Hunter's Onslaught that then. Just get it out right now, and then we Rise of Exodus, the Fractal token. I like getting these things out of the way as quickly as possible so I don't have to sit here looking at their 4-card hand and being scared. If we can just trade all our creatures and removal spells right now, we can see where things are going a lot quicker. Closing statement as well. Would rather hold on to, well, actually probably use that in the end step here. Put a counter on Combat Professor. Because we don't have a card to discard to our Rise of Exodus. This is our end step now, so we destroy that. Counter on Combat Professor. Eureka moment to draw some more cards. Put another land out. Augmenter Pugilist. Big old 8/8 trample. We're going to have to rise that. Devouring Tendrils here, gain life, kill our card. Still on that 6-turn clock from Needlethorn Drake. Cogwork Archivist here can block the Needlethorn Drake. But we are going to have to rise the Pugilist. We will take our Environmental Sciences, just dig a land out of our deck and gain some more life. That actually gives us a lot more turns to live against a 1/1. And we actually like playing the land so that we can play Silver Quill Campus's Scry ability more often, even when we're casting somewhat expensive removal spells like we have been. We are not going to scry in our upkeep, though. We're just going to play an Archivist to try to block Scurrid Colony. Ooh, Biblioplex Assistant. I can only cast one of these two. Biblioplex Assistant trades with Needlethorn Drake, which is nice. But I'll be taking 4 by doing that, so I don't think I can do that first. I think I play Archivist, and next turn our plan is to play Biblioplex Assistant. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have enough mana to cast Biblioplex Assistant and Scry in our upkeep, so we'll do that. So, Archivist stops Scurrid Colony from attacking. We just start taking 1 a turn again. One, 2, 3, 4, and Scry. Don't want that. Draw. Okay. Main. Now we Biblioplex Assistant, hold on to this land, pick up Rise of Exodus. Biblioplex Assistant trades into Needlethorn Drake. Cogwork Archivist blocks Scurrid Colony all day long. And a Rise of Exodus deals with whatever they put on top. Yep, and draws us another card by discarding the Swamp. So it is our best removal spell to pick up. We could also take the Devastating Mastery, but we kind of like our creatures here still. Alright. Now we go for the Rise to kill the Scurrid Colony, I guess? Or do we just start going for the mill win with Cogwork Archivist? I could see that. Yeah, we don't need to kill the Scurrid Colony until they kill one of our cards here. Right now we can stand to just hold off. But I also... you were at 5. I don't really want to start attacking in with Assistant, even if I kill Colony. I think I actually just pass. Start scrying. Well, putting a card on bottom and then scrying every turn. Field Trip is the play. Alright, that gets a Fractal Summoning and we'll kill that with our Rise of Exodus. Oh, Containment Breach to kill one of these. Sure. Kill the Archivist. So now we have to Fractal Summoning our, or their Scurrid Colony. Rise of Extus, their Scourge Colony. Am I getting all my card names mixed up again? It feels like I am. Like I called Rise of Extus Fractal Summoning or something. And I'm just absolutely losing my mind. Time to go to 1, baby. Woo! It's actually pretty scary. Ooh, Cram Session. Alright, go to 5. Thank you, Cram Session. Very cool. Go for the Rise of Extus first. And they already knew this was coming. Go for the Cram Session. Back to 5. Agonizing Remorse is the draw. Not super good here. Oh dear, Bookworm. Oh dear, we need exile-based removal to deal with that. Oof, Needlethorn Drake as well, drawing the 2 cards. Really good with the Bookworm, getting a 7/7 trample out and allowing them to draw another card, get 2 threats onto the board immediately. Mage Hunter's Onslaught doesn't really do it for us. I mean, it saves us for a turn. The problem is Bookworm's such a great card in the late game here because it can keep going back into their library and they can scry towards it. So I think this Bookworm just absolutely slams us. We needed another Rise of Extus available for the Bookworm, but I didn't even know they had one in their deck. And we were just at too low of a life total to not Rise of Extus there. Oh, I forgot to scry in our upkeep. Could have maybe lived another turn by killing that, but Bookworm definitely closes this one out. I always forget you have to keep putting the stop on your upkeep. It doesn't just automatically put it there whenever you have a campus out. I feel like it should, but it doesn't. Run it back. As always, that was the first loss of the draft. See if we just do a full 180 here and lose every game from this point on. Definitely have had a lot of drafts like that. Massive win streak gets absolutely walled off at the very end. We'll see where things go here. This has actually ended up being a way more even matchup than I thought. Our opponent's deck's very sick, very well-drafted Quandrix deck. They have the card draw with Zamone. They have great ramp with Field Trip and good card draw on the Quandrix Apprentice. They have the Fractal Summonings to grab when they're learning, so they have those big late-game cards to play. They have Leyline Summoning, Leyline Invocation, whatever it's called, to make giant fractals as well. Really just the full fractal, the full Quandrix deck here. They even have removal, the 1/1 Flying Death Touchers, the Devouring Tendrils. We're doing a lot better than I thought we would at the start of last game when I saw that they were just Quandrix and they had played the Scurrid and then the Vortex Runner there turn 2 and turn 3. Well, this is a pretty sketchy one. Even if I draw the third land, I can't cast anything off of Cody here because Cody makes 1 mana of every color, so I can't cast Onslaught or Divine Gambit. I feel like I have to... I don't know. I really don't know on this one. Another land also hits the Shadewing Laureate. And it could be any land, doesn't have to be specifically a Plains or Swamp, and then we can cast both Cody and Shadewing Laureate. Obviously I have to cast the Shadewing first, because Cody won't let me cast the Laureate. We've seen how good Cody can be if we can get it to go off, but this just feels like a hand where we can't because we have those double costs. I'm actually going to mulligan this, and I'll keep this one. Again, a slow hand, but I think it's workable if they don't curve out on us. We do get that Cram Session. I think, again, I'm just going to curve out 3-drop and then the 4-drop, then the 6-drop later. Zimone on turn 2. Got the Cogwork Archivist later. Definitely want to hit lands on the introduction. Devastating Master and Divine Gambit are actually not great for us here. Can play into the Devastating Mastery if we keep that, though. Sure. Might have been our death sentence right there, because we need to draw 2 more white sources before we can cast it. It will be a while. Agonizing Remorse is the draw. I think we just play Combat Professor and start putting pressure on them with that. And that gives us a chump blocker to survive long enough to maybe draw the white sources we need for Devastating Mastery. Eureka moment here. Alright, it looks like... Well, they're not curving out on us with creatures here. They are really getting there with the ramp here, which is potentially quite devastating. We're actually only 1 mana away from Rise of Exodus if we play Cody here. So if they don't immediately kill Cody, could pivot things around with a Cody, actually. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, they've got 7 mana out. They're going to have 8 lands out here on what, turn 3, turn 4? Turn 4, I think. They'll have the 8 lands at the ready. That's just absolutely horrifying. Really wonderful start from them, but our start's really not too shabby either. Drawing into that Cody was huge if it doesn't die. I guess we do need to draw another land to really make a lot of use out of it. And immediately cast a Rise of Exodus. There we go, there's another land, but it does come into play tapped, so we won't be doing it right now. So I Agonizing Remorse, see what's left in their hand, that's the only thing I can cast here. And then we play our tapped Shine Shadow Snarl. They're 1 mana away from Vortex Runner being able to hit me unblockably. Oh my god, we get to exile Bookworm? That's massive, but they still have 2 Leyline Invocations, even if we exile the Bookworm. So that's terrifying, but we got rid of the Bookworm, which is pretty huge. So that's nice. And now we have the mana to Rise of Exodus a Fractal next turn. Maybe even hit another removal spell off of Cody to kill the Vortex Runner, because we're going to need to kill that as well. Alright. They could also just kill the Cody here, which I'm actually super fine with, because if they don't draw the removal to kill Combat Professor, I think we can actually outrace them here. If we can't outrace them, we can go for the Devastating Mastery. We're hitting them for 3 a turn for sure. Playing a 4 or 5 means we block with Springmane, the Springmane Servant. The only thing that hits us is this 3 damage every turn. So we hit them for 3 a turn. They hit us for 3 a turn. We kill the big old Fractal, then we kill the next big old Fractal ideally. I think I'm going to go for it, rather than go for the Devastating Mastery here, and the Devastating Mastery is the backup plan. Just the second Combat Professor dies to just anything at all, it's like, alright, blow everything up. Devastating Mastery it is. But we can't really just try to lean in on Devastating Mastery right now, because if I do that, I just hit with Combat Professor, then I take 6, and they play a Leyline Invocation. Then I still can't Devastating Mastery immediately, because if I do, they still have another Leyline Invocation afterwards. Looks like the Biblioplex Assistant to pick up the Containment Breach to kill our Cogwork Archivist. That will be annoying. So Rise of Exodus can discard this swamp to draw another card and get rid of their unblockable creature here, which I think I'm fine with. But we can also go for the Devastating Mastery. At this point, I think I'm going to have to Devastating Mastery, because if I get rid of Vortex Runner right now, I do hit them for 3 here, but then they crack back because they're going to kill Archivist for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I go down to 8 life, then they make a giant Leyline, then I have to just Devastating Mastery there. So since I'm going to have the Mastery anyway, let's just send in the Professor. I guess I could even send in the Archivist for damage instead of looping something. Yeah, that would be better. Should have been attacking with Archivist, probably more often than I have been in a lot of these games, but definitely in this game. Am I missing something here? I guess I just kill that. Well, now, if I just kill that, then if I kill Vortex Runner, Containment Breach kills Archivist for 3. Then they don't have the mana to play a Fractal immediately. We're actually kind of still in the race. If I just get to eat the Assistant right there. Let's actually go for it here. Oh, they are drawing 2 cards to turn off Zimone, though. Forgot about her. Yeah, that makes it so Devastating Mastery's never going to help us. Well, I mean, it still kills Zimone. It's going to help us, yes, but it's not going to do what it has been doing and immediately win the game because they just have a ton of backup cards left over. Or they will just have a ton of backup cards left over. So we have Mage Hunter's Onslaught to kill another Fractal kind of thing. Keep the race going. Potentially. Can't really Devastating Mastery until they commit at least the Fractal to this board. Could kill Zimone with Mage Hunter's Onslaught. I really don't see a way out of this one. Because our only way to break through the amount of card advantage they have here is to outrace them with Combat Professor, and we don't have enough damage output to do that. So, like, because we can't outrace them, our usual game plan would be to try to outvalue them with a big Devastating Mastery, but Devastating Mastery is a 2-for-2 right now. We trade our Mastery and our Combat Professor for their Zimone and Servant, which is bad, and plus Zimone's going to draw 2 more cards now. I think our only chance here would have been if we killed Zimone a long time ago, but at this point we're kind of too far gone to be on that plan. We're just hoping for some exceptional turn of events in our card draw that pushes us to lethal here. Maybe we draw our... Well, now there's absolutely nothing. Maybe we draw our 2/3 flyer that can drain them for 2 life. Because then we hit for 3 there, put another flyer out. That puts them down to 7. Then the next time we attack, we hit for 3 plus 2, which is 5. That's 2 life. And we use the life drain and kill them there. So if we'd immediately drawn the 2/3 flyer that drained them life, we might have had a way to get enough damage through there. But now we don't, so now we have to just Devastating Mastery here and really cross our fingers that Leyline Invocation is the only good card in their hand. Because now we Devastating Mastery to kill everything on the board, but then they immediately play another Leyline plus have 3 cards backup. So I'm not really certain that this is really going to help. But we'll see where it leads us. I'm going to hold on to this land to discard to Rise of Exodus again. I forgot that best 2 out of 3 games, you get a chess clock at the end. We have Humiliate to look at their hand. So Rise of Exodus, discard a Plains here. If they have Snakeskin Veil, we lose no matter what we do because we don't have enough... Well, no, we could play around Snakeskin Veil by humiliating them and then Mage Hunter's Onslaughting them, so we might as well. Because Humiliate's going to hit something no matter what. However, if they respond to our Humiliate by Snakeskin Veiling, we just lose. Because we don't have instant speed removal, so we lose no matter what we do this game. Never mind. They can also just give Hexproof in response to us trying to discard the card that gives Hexproof. So, had the right thought at the end there. There's just no way out of the Snakeskin Veil there. So that puts us to 3-1 now. Heading into potentially the last round if we lose. But no matter what, being 3-2 here, getting those 2 player draft tokens out of this event, it's a pretty good place to be. So I'm happy with it here. But I'll do my best in the next round here, see if we can't Get some more wins added to the stack. Alright, I mean, slow hand, but it's doing what our deck's doing. Playing a flyer and blowing everything else up. Eager First Year will be the first play from our opponent. Well, we've got a Devastating Mastery coming up, so might be able to cheese out the first game with a Devastating Mastery if they are a very aggressive Silver Quill deck and they get to curve out well here. Dusk Mage. At this point, I'm just going to go all in on the Devastating Mastery and just play nothing till turn 6. Yeah, even if we played a Combat Professor here, we're not blocking this turn because that play's so huge. Now Dusk Mage draws them a card after we Mastery. We take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If they play a Pump Spell, we die. Yeah, we super die to a Pump Spell, so I think we have to do a Mage Hunter's Onslaught here to be mega safe, but I'm pretty sure we're just getting curved out here. The Eager First Years with the ability to buff off of any combat trick makes it very likely we die here if we don't Onslaught. Yeah, let's just Onslaught the biggest attacker. Does let them draw another card though, but hopefully it's just another cheap creature, so they just dump out 2 2-mana creatures here. That would be the best turn of events for us. But they've got enough pressure on us. We're down to 7 here. They really don't need to. They do. Anyways, so we'll take it. Take the 4 for 1. Hope that can bring us back into this game. They still have 4 cards in hand, though. Really great start from them. And Shale makes it so they put a ++1 counter on the rest of their stuff. And the Demonic Tutor to grab the best card from their deck into their hand. That's terrifying. Demonic Tutor always a scary card. I kind of like playing more creatures here than just 1 4/5 because a 2/3 flyer is big enough to block Shale in the first place. If they have removal, we'd rather they kill that than the 4/5. So we'll just play these 2 things, and I think I'm just going to discard this Plains to draw a card here. And I'll hold on to that because we do have the multiple Rise of Exodus in the deck. We've got the 2 of them and more Learn cards. Silver Quill Command. +3/+3 till end of turn. Return a creature. Well, that's not great for us. We can block Arrogant Poet with Combat Professor. I think I save our Combat Professor here, because we can play Archivist and we can block both of those. Biblioplex Assistant. Could get Devastating Mastery again, or Mage Hunter's Onslaught again. Gives us another blocker big enough to trade into those. I am dead to a removal spell. Well, no, I'm not, because if I have 2 flyers out, I block Arrogant Poet and take 1. Yeah. Biblioplex Assistant, draw another removal spell seems solid. If I attack without Vigilance, I'm dead to another removal spell. So I'd rather give Combat Professor Vigilance and send that in than give the Pest Vigilance. Giving the Pest Vigilance, ideally, we could do that to get 4 damage in, because then they're not going to block with Poet, but then I'm dead to removal spell, so I don't want to make that play. Oh, we are definitely dead to a Study Break. Yep, this is kind of the cream of the crop aggressive Silver Quill deck. What Silver Quill does best here. Yeah, I don't really have much of a sideboard for this sort of matchup. I think we just are in a pretty rough spot for this matchup. I think we just grab the Ageless Guardian. Probably get rid of like Agonizing Remorse. Maybe even the Divine Gambit, because they just had so many cards in their hand all game, they were always going to have something to replace with. We never got to the game to the point where they had nothing left in hand. But we don't really win games unless we get it to that point, so... Divine Gambit will be useful in a game that is going in our favor. But the fact that it's only useful if the game's already going in our favor means maybe we cut that instead. Like, Agonizing Remorse can still do things if it's not. But I still think I like Humiliate better than Agonizing Remorse in this matchup, just because I don't think we saw any graveyard synergies from them, and this doesn't damage us, and they are very aggressive, so every point of damage is scary. We could also even just put in a Silver Quill Apprentice and get more creatures in here. So we have some random 2-drops to play. Guardian and Apprentice to block things. Yeah, I also like that. I'll go for that here. Not a very keepable hand to start things off, but our mulligan does put us with a pretty good hand here. We have Expel. We have Letter of Acceptance, so we've got another mana towards Devastating Mastery. I think this is a solid keep. Do you want the 3 mana to be able to Letter of Acceptance? Because then we have the 4 mana to be able to do Combat Professor and stuff like that as well. So I don't know what we get rid of. I don't think we get rid of Letter because it's our second white towards Devastating Mastery. I don't think we get rid of Devastating Mastery because it's so good in this matchup. I really don't want to get rid of a Swamp because it's the only way I guaranteed get the Letter out on turn 3. But it also might be the best option. Maybe we get rid of Expel because we're trying to play into Mastery anyway. Hunt for Specimens is a pretty great draw, so we can pick up Environmental Sciences and grab another white source off of that. We're definitely going to need it because that's more black sources there. Do have 3 white mana, Shine, Shadow, Snarl, Letter of Acceptance, and Environmental Sciences grabbing another plane, so we only need to draw 1 more at some point here. Shadewing Laureate. I think just Environmental Sciences for planes and play it here. Don't really want to put anything on the board if I can avoid it. We only need to draw 1 more white source to do a one-sided Devastating Mastery this game. So we'll hold out hope for that. Although if they're not playing anything, isn't likely to work out. A 2/3 is big enough to block their like Leech Fanatic and stuff if they don't combo out, but we can also just hold on to an Expel here. Yeah, I think we expel the Leech Fanatic. If they play things out slow enough to not run into the Devastating Mastery, we can try to just control things with one removal spell at a time. We've got plenty of removal in the deck. So even playing around stuff like the Devastating Mastery works in our favor by slowing the game down to where we might be able to actually take a firm control of things. And yeah, I'm still not sacrificing this though, even though I do have the 5 mana out. I need all of the white for Devastating Mastery. Could cast it just right now. I think I will go ahead. Maybe they just don't have a lot of creatures in their hand. If they're tanking here on their next turn, I would have expected just creature go. But maybe not. Shale, Silver Quill Apprentice. Okay, they do just have creature go. I can only play one card here, unfortunately. 2/3 is big enough to block anything they have if they don't have a trick. So I'm gonna just play the Combat Professor here. All those Silver Quill decks are the kind of decks that can really make use of combat tricks. Well, go blank to discard our hands, pretty devastating there. Gets rid of all our backup removal. Although Spectre of the Fens is a wonderful draw. They're down to 1 card in hand. It's not like the end of the world here, but that was a really good go blink. Yeah, Spectre of the Fens actually just a really nice top deck to give us a chance here. Elven Shield Mage is a 4/4 is pretty scary, but we can double block that. I don't really want to do that because I want to keep draining them life, but I'm going to have to. Can't just take 4 a turn. I guess that could really just kill us on the spot if they have a combat trick to go with the Shield Mage. Removal spell's not as bad as if they would have had a combat trick, because they could kill both of our creatures if we try to block Shield Mage and they have a combat trick. Still not great for us, like because now we're taking a ton of damage, and they have the Demonic Tutor again to grab their best card. I don't even remember what they grabbed last time. Of course, they don't reveal it, so it could have been anything that they played after the Demonic Tutor last game. At this point, we're taking 8 and going to 6, or we're trading with the Silver Quill Apprentice. Combat Professor is never going to be big enough to kill Shield Mage unless I draw another Combat Professor. So maybe I just trade with the Silver Quill Apprentice here. I mean, it's big enough to block the Apprentice anytime it doesn't buff itself. Let's just take it all, go to 6. See what we top deck. I don't think I can afford to scry in our upkeep because then we only have 2 mana left. So the only thing we could possibly draw that would be good for 2 would be Divine Gambit, which we did cut. Yeah, just needed to draw like a Cogwork Archivist or something, get really lucky there. But I think that's pretty much it, most likely. Now we chump block the Shield Mage and they have 3 creatures on board to our no cards, in hand or on board. Oh yeah, they drew the Silver Quill command. Yeah, Demonic Tutor into Silver Quill command is a firm way to close that game out, but they had things unlocked certainly without it. Just a very, very well drafted, very strong deck from our opponent, even on just the commons and uncommons, just the synergies and aggressive curves that they had there were getting us even without the great ways to end the game there. So that is going to end my first Strixhaven draft challenge. I honestly did better than I was expecting, especially with how the deck ended up. I certainly drafted and played pretty rocky today. But as I said before, it is the day of the Strixhaven draft challenges, so I want to get this video out to you all as soon as possible, get into these draft challenge events. But hopefully next time I'll be a little more well-rested and into the mood for Magic. Usually I do record just several Magic videos on my days off, and that's how I can be like totally focused on the game. I'm not usually pretty pooped whenever I get home from work and then try to play more Magic. Sometimes it causes a lot of brain farts and not the greatest play, but still ended up with 2 player draft tokens and 6 packs out of this one. Not bad at all for 3,000 gems. So we'll open up our packs at the end here and see if we get anything cool. Rush Rebirth, interesting card, but the common Witherbloom trick is a little better than this in my opinion. The one that just brings back exactly what you had. In Limited, that's a little better, but in Constructed, you can build around this to tutor for a specific creature, which is fun. Another Rushed Rebirth. I think I'm getting to the point where I've played so much Strixhaven, I don't have very many rares or mythics that I haven't fully collected, so we're probably going to see a lot of duplicates as it gives me my 3rd and 4th copies of the last few cards I need. Baleful Mastery, of course, a great removal spell for Limited. Gift of Estates, solid Mystical Archives card there. That's all I'm really missing mostly are the Mystical Archives cards in terms of things that I don't have a single copy of. Biblioplex is going to be a fun way to draw cards off a land. 2 more packs. Wow, there's a lot of packs to open. I'm not used to opening this much at the end of a video unless I like 7-0'd or something. Regrowth is awesome. That's such a fun commander card. And finally, Frostboil Snarl. So we have been getting some of those good dual lands for Constructed. Well, anyways, as always, that is going to be the end of this video. If you want to see more of this content, do all of those good things that let the YouTube algorithm know that you've enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, that's going to end today's video. I will be sure to bring you some more Strixhaven draft challenges. I'm going to have to pick up some more gems this time around, though, because unfortunately, while it is technically good value, if you have a decent win rate in these drafts, like it's technically good value to get 2 player draft tokens and 6 packs for 3,000 gems. You don't immediately get those 3,000 gems back, so you're converting your gems into more draft tokens to get more gems by playing those drafts. So if I want to play another draft challenge, even if I 7-win run a draft challenge, I can't immediately play another one unless I pay 3,000 more gems. You just don't get any gem rewards out of these draft challenges. That's probably the biggest downside. You have to pay just like actual money to have the gems in bank to convert through the draft challenge into more player draft tokens. So kind of got to do that loop. Gems into draft challenge, into player draft tokens, and then those player draft tokens into player drafts, into gems, that kind of thing. So anyways, as always, as I go off on a giant tangent, I would like to thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for more Magic Arena.